So much joy, so much joy. Hello and welcome to another video. My name is Heather and as always I'm reading with a vengeance and I hope you are too. Thank you so much to the OGs who keep coming back, and if you're new to my channel, very warm welcome to you. I hope everybody is doing very well. How is everybody's reading doing? We're winding down the summer. Did we get some good summer reads in? I've had a pretty good reading month. I haven't recorded in a minute, and I meant to record this a few days ago. I knew I was going to record late this month. What is the day? It's the 9th of September at the time of recording this, and I'm hoping to get this out by the 11th. I was going to record it a couple of days ago because I got home from work early, and I thought to myself, I'll do an afternoon recording instead of coffee. I'll have myself a beer, and we'll have a cocktail together and talk about books. But I was on a time schedule because I don't like to record when my husband's home, but I had 2 solid hours until he was due to come home, and everything went wrong. It was kind of a comedy of errors. I was just about to press the record button and I knocked my beer over. Hello, rookie mistake. And so then I spent time cleaning that up and making sure it wasn't going to smell like beer in here. And then when I got that cleaned up, I went to set up and put my microphone on, and I couldn't find the little clippy thing that clips my microphone onto my clothes. And I turned this room and this shelf and everything upside down to try to find that clip, and I could not find it. I spent 45 minutes looking for that clip, and it turned out that I had wiped it up with the towel that I was cleaning the beer up with and tossed the whole thing into the washer. I hadn't started the washer, so nothing got damaged or anything, but that was 45 minutes of, well, actually, when all was said and done, that was like an hour and 15 minutes of shenanigans. It was a mess. So that's all to say that I really was hoping to publish this video today. I did get a late start in recording my wrap-up video, more late than usual because my mom was in town. You might have seen that in a previous video that I mentioned that my mom was coming to visit. We had a great time. Jake, buddy. I had a great time with my mom. We were basically tourists the whole time she was here. I got to show her stuff that I hadn't even seen yet. So that was a really, really good time. But that was 2 weeks that I didn't get a chance to record. Let me see what else I was going to talk to you about. I also celebrated my birthday at the end of August, and that's why my mom came out to visit. My husband makes my birthday special every year. He does something fantastic, and this year was no different. The people at work at the bookstore that I work at, they made a card for me, and I have to show it to you because it is just perfect. And they made this card for me, and of course they all signed it inside, and it was just super special. If you don't know, or you can't recognize him from the profile, that's Harry Styles. So they know that I have my little crush on Harry Styles, and they made this card for me, and it was just fantastic. I love where I work. I love the people I work with. And anyways, I had a really good birthday. My husband took me out to a couple of places, a really special restaurant called Alligator Soul in Savannah, and they also took me to Lulu's Chocolate Bar, and it was just a really good time. And to those of you who commented to wish me a happy birthday, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Here's to another trip around the sun. But that's not to say that I didn't get some reading done. So that's why we're here. I'm going to talk to you about the books that I read in the second half of August. Before I get to those books, I'm going to tell you a few stats. I read 13 books in the month of August. I DNF'd 1 book. I read 10 physical books and 3 audiobooks, which is kind of low for me. I usually read a few more audiobooks, but because my mom was here, I wasn't listening to books anytime I was in the car. I read 9 women authors. And let me tell you, when I was doing that count, I don't seek out women authors. It just turns out that the books that I'm most interested in happen to be written by women. Yay, women. I read 2 authors that were people of color. I read 4 arcs, and I'm super excited to talk to you about those. Now, this is the time that I would tell you about my star ratings and the range of 1 or 2 star ratings versus the 4 and 5 star ratings, but I don't star rate my books anymore, at least not in my videos. I still do on Goodreads, just for like future reference when I go back and look at a book and I don't remember if I loved it or liked it. And so that star rating just gives me an idea if my memory fails me. Obviously, books that I absolutely love, I don't need to give a star rating because I don't forget that. So I can tell you that out of the books that I read in August, besides the DNF, there was only one other book that I didn't really like or that disappointed me. The rest were I liked or I loved. So that's good news. And just a reminder of the books that I read in the first half of the month that I covered in my mid-month wrap-up, which I will link down below. I read Factory Girls by Michelle Gallen, Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed, Terrace Story by Hilary Leichter, and The Barnabus Project, which is a picture book by the Fan Brothers. I also read a picture book called Bear by Stefan Nospelius. Apologies again for the mispronunciation. I also read Weird Things Customers Say in Bookshops by Jen Campbell. And finally, Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead. That was also an ARC. Terrace Story was an ARC. The Ashley Winstead was my first Ashley Winstead, and I had such a great time with it, and I can't wait to read her other books. So not a bad first half of the month. Let's get to the books that I read in the second half of the month. So there's a lot of superlatives surrounding the first book that I attempted in the second half of the month of August. I guess the first superlative, it was the first. The second superlative, was the longest physical book on my TBR list on Goodreads that I have in my possession. It might even be the book that's been on my Goodreads TBR at all. Anyways, I finally got to it and I DNF'd it. That book is A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan, winner of the Pulitzer Prize. I don't know what that means to me. Anyways, I've had good experiences with Pulitzer Prize winning books, i.e. Demon Copperhead. I've had not so great experiences with Pulitzer Prize winning books, i.e. Trust, and now Jennifer Egan's book. This isn't the first Jennifer Egan book that I read. I read Manhattan Beach and I did not like it. I was bored. I didn't care for it. I think for that reason is why I dragged my feet so long on getting to this book. And I probably, how far did I get to this book? I read the first 3 chapters, so 58 pages, which I think is a solid attempt. And I was bored. I didn't connect. In case you don't know what this book is about, it's about an aging former punk rocker and his assistant who is kind of a wayward girl finding her way through the world. You read about their past and then how they connect to each other in the present tense and how they affect other people. And I don't know, I didn't care. And yeah, so my first book of the second half of August was a DNF. Have any of you read this book? Did I not give it enough of a chance? You know what? Don't answer that. It doesn't matter. I have reached a point in my life where I am becoming more and more comfortable with DNFs. There are far too many books that I know that I will enjoy, and not every book is for the reader, the specific reader, and I am learning to be okay with that. So the rest of the books that I read for the month of August, I've had a much better time with, starting with Wahala by Nikki May. This is a debut novel for this author. I believe it came out early in 2022, and it took me a while to get to it, but became available on my Libby app, and I enjoyed it. I listened to this. It was well narrated. If you don't know, Wahala is Nigerian pidgin for trouble or bad luck or suffering. This follows 3 Anglo-Nigerian women living in London. I believe it's London. They're the best of friends. They all kind of lead different lives, though. They're all in their early 30s, I believe. Ronke is a dentist, but her dream in life is to have a happy marriage, have 2.5 kids with the picket fence. But instead, she ends up dating loser after loser. At least they're losers in the eyes of her 2 best friends. They never really approve of the men that Ronke dates, but Ronke is now dating somebody who she thinks could be the one that her dreams come true with. Then we have Boo, who has the life that Ronke wants. She has a kind, loving husband that she loves. She has a bright, precocious, if not rambunctious little girl who she adores, but Boo feels underappreciated and she feels unfulfilled. And she gets annoyed when Ronke comes at her with, oh, you have the perfect life. What do you have to complain about? Whenever she does complain, Boo gets into trouble. She makes some poor choices because of this frustration. And then we have Simi, who has the golden life as far as everybody's concerned. She works in the fashion industry. She's very successful. She's very chic. She's also happily married. However, her husband thinks they're trying to have a baby, but Simi is not so keen on having children just yet. So she's kind of hiding a secret, and that gets her in trouble. They're all the best of friends, and things are going smoothly until Isabel enters the picture. And Isabel, I believe, was a childhood friend of, was it Simi? I think it's Simi who brought Isabel into the picture. They were childhood friends, and then they had a falling out, and then 20 years goes by, and they didn't have any connection, and then all of a sudden Isabel shows up in Simi's life for mysterious reasons. And once Isabel kind of insinuates herself into everybody's life, becoming the friend that each of them thinks is missing, bad stuff starts to happen. So their friendship is put to the test, and then there's a murder involved. And it was an okay story. I thought that there was a lot of complaining going on that was a little bit much for me. And also the murder didn't really happen until the end of the story. And reading some of the descriptions, which gets me in trouble sometimes, I know, I felt like the murder was going to be more a part of the story, and it's really not. So if you're going into this looking for a murder mystery, you will be disappointed. This is just contemporary fiction about women relationships and how miscommunication can wreak terrible consequences, and how, of course, lying to the people that you care about and people that you love can have terrible consequences. And that's what this story is about. And I appreciated the story about the relationships between these women and how very different they were, but how much they loved each other anyways, and were there for each other. But also, even when you love somebody, sometimes you can get frustrated at them, and sometimes you can do not so flattering things, and that's just real life. So yeah, while I did appreciate all of that, I will also say that this had an unsatisfying ending to me. Not the entire ending, but there was this one thing, and of course I don't want to spoil it for you, that just didn't wrap up the way I thought would be more satisfying. So there was that. So I like this book, and I would recommend it. If you like reading about relationships between women friends and that kind of thing, I would definitely recommend it. I liked it enough. Absolutely. The next book is the third arc that I got to read for August, and that is Mother-Daughter Murder Night by Nina Simon. I think I brought this up in one of my most recent videos of books that I'm excited to be released. And I think I put the emphasis on the wrong word when I talked about it in my other video. I looked at it and just saw 4 separate words: mother, daughter, murder, night. And it's really Mother-Daughter Murder Night, like movie night, but with murder. Anyways, this is a debut author, and this book was just published earlier this week on the 5th of September, so this is now available to you. And I had a really good time with this book. This wasn't as compelling. It had the misfortune of being read almost immediately after the Ashley Winstead book. It didn't quite have the edge. It is marketed as a mystery thriller. I would say it's more of a cozy mystery. I wouldn't say there's anything thrilling about it, but one thing that I loved about this book is that the main character is a 57-year-old woman who is super capable and super strong, and she is the front runner in this book. And let me just tell you more about what this is about. So this is about 3 generations of the Rubicon family. You have Lana, who is the older of the 3, her daughter Beth, and Beth's daughter Jack. Now Beth and Lana have a strained relationship. They have been somewhat estranged for many years until Lana becomes ill, and Lana is kind of forced to move in with Beth and Jack while she recovers from this illness. And Beth and Jack kind of live in a remote small town in a California coastal town. And while Lana is there, a murder happens in town, and it happens kind of close to home. Jack is 15, 16 years old, and she works part-time after school at a kayaking sightseeing company. And during one of her tours, she finds the body, and she is initially the suspect in this murder. So Lana feels compelled to get involved and prove her granddaughter's innocence. The story goes from there, and it's a good time. The mystery is, it's an okay mystery. it keeps you turning the pages and anything. But really the thing that I was here for, that I really loved about this book, is the relationship between the three women. Beth and Jack had this really close relationship. Beth really having that goal of having a close relationship with her daughter, because Beth never had that closeness with Lana. You are watching as Lana watches the relationship between Beth and Jack, and she kind of looks at it at almost like she's looking at a Martian, and she is liking it though. She's like, "What is this beautiful thing that's happening, and why don't I have that with my daughter?" And so you watch that kind of unfold, and it's a beautiful thing. And I really enjoyed that. And so that, with the murder mystery in the background, made this a fun read for me. I would definitely recommend this if you like a cozy mystery. As I said, it's very character heavy, plot a little bit lighter. It's very environmentally friendly. They talk a lot about nature and the importance of respecting the environment. I also really appreciated the origin of this story. I read the author's note, and I also follow the author on Instagram now. But the origin of the story, the sickness that Lana deals with in the book, the author's own mother dealt with it, and so a lot of that is coming from the author's heart, and you feel that as you're reading it. So I really appreciated it. As far as the story goes, did I love it? No, but I really, really liked it, and I would recommend it. The next book I read in August is The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating by Elizabeth Tova Bailey. I try to get one nonfiction book in at least every 2 weeks. So the first half of August, I did the Cheryl Strayed Tiny Beautiful Things. So I picked this one up. It's a little slip of a book. I really enjoyed it. This is beautifully written. This is the author's story about when she becomes debilitatingly ill. For a long time, they could not diagnose why she was ill, but she was completely bedridden, and not just bedridden, but completely horizontal. Just to change from her right side onto her left side while in bed was an enormous struggle. She couldn't sit up for very long periods of time. She didn't get into the details of, getting to the bathroom or how she ate or fed herself. I do know that she had help. She had people come to her home to help take care of her, but she didn't get too much into the details of that, which I'm grateful for, because that's not what this story is about. What the story is about is, while she is bedridden, a friend of hers that comes to visit her finds a snail on the path, and for whatever reason, she picks up a snail and puts it in the potted plant that she's bringing as a gift, and puts it on her nightstand. And Elizabeth watches this snail live its life. And normally, she talks about how in normal life circumstances, nobody has the patience to just watch a snail for hours on end, because of the pace of the snail and how slowly it goes about its daily business. But when you can literally do nothing else, she watched the snail for hours at a time. Every single waking hour, she watched this snail do its thing. And it was a lot more compelling than what you would think. And I found that very interesting. The only thing that I would say that I didn't enjoy as much as, it got a little bit sciencey, but I think it was kind of necessary in this. And she explained a lot of the biology and the behavior of the snails, the lifespan, and why they do what they do, and it related to the story that she wanted to tell. So I think it was necessary. I found it a little much, but I got through it, and ultimately I really love the story, just how much she cared about this snail and why, and how it related to her own life. And really, there is a point as far as how it relates to her own life, as far as the pace of life, and what truly makes a fulfilling life and a purposeful life. She gets into that in relation to a snail's life. What does a fulfilling and purposeful life look like? And that's different for everybody, and it's different for everybody at different points in their life. And she gets into that, and I really appreciated that. So I would definitely recommend this. Like I said, it's a tiny, tiny little book. If you have a chance to get your hands on this book, I would do so. You could probably get through it in one sitting. For this is the final arc that I read in the month of August, and that is Touched by Walter Mosley. I have been wanting to read Walter Mosley for a very, very, very long time. He wrote the Easy Rollins, I think is the name of the series, the first of which is Devil in a Blue Dress, which 100 years ago was made into a movie with Denzel Washington. And when I found out that that movie was based on that Walter Mosley book, I wanted to read his stuff, and it sits on my TBR untouched, like so many other books. But that's the story of my life. Anyways, my manager at work and the owners of the bookshop went to a book fair, book conference a few weeks back. And when you go to that, you usually come home with a ton of books, most of them ARCs. And I had the huge honor of my manager coming across a book, reading it, and thinking to herself, I think Heather would like this. It's so freaking weird. Such a huge compliment, right? So anyways, she brought this to work for me, and she's like, this is so weird. It is off the chain. I think you will like it. Let me know what you think. And I read it, and yes, it is so weird, and I loved it. So this book, also very small, I would, I guess, classify it as a novella. It is also less than 200 pages. It opens up with this man waking up from asleep, and he feels like he's been sleeping for years. And he has this weird idea that there's this intergalactic plan to end life on Earth. It's in his brain. He doesn't know how it got there, but he wakes up having this knowledge. But unfortunately, when he wakes up, he's naked, and he, without even thinking about it, walks out onto his balcony. A young child sees him, calls the police. He's arrested for indecent exposure. While waiting for trial in jail, he, in like an unconscious state, kills his racist, oh, by the way, Martin, who is the main character. He's Black. He's living his life in middle-class America with his lovely wife and 2 children. Anyways, in the jail, he unconsciously kills his racist cellmate. Then he gets out of jail and he goes home to find 3 racist thugs who are going to avenge that cellmate's death by murdering Martin's family. There's this being inside Martin who comes alive and savagely attacks these 3 intruders. But after the attack, the intruders, who have now changed blood with Martin, understand that they need to work with Martin to fight this entity who is going to be ending life on Earth. I can't really tell you more than that. It sounds weird. It sounds like it might be, from how I'm explaining it and I'm hearing it coming out of my mouth, it might sound like something that it isn't. It's not a vampire story or anything like that. There is some supernatural alien type thing, but here's the thing that makes it so compelling. First of all, it's super action-packed. I mean, I couldn't put this down. I want to say I read it in 2 sittings, and that's only because work gets in the way of stuff. So, as it does for most people, just action-packed page turner of a book, and you're wondering what the heck is going on and what's going to happen next. But the other thing that I found just really compelling about this book and made it so weird is you don't know if it's some kind of alien invasion or if it's some kind of supernatural thing that's going on, or if Martin is having some kind of schizophrenic break, because it could be any one of those things and you don't know what it is and you want to find out. And I enjoyed the hell out of this book, and thank you, Jenny, for not only recommending it to me, but bringing it to me and putting it into my hot little hands for my enjoyment. So thank you so much for that. I mean, friends like that are just priceless. So as I said, this is an ARC. This comes out October 10th. And when it does, I highly recommend you read it. We're just getting better and better here. The next book that I read in the month of August was BadAsstronauts by Grady Hendrix. I don't know, maybe even if you are a Grady Hendrix fan, you might not have heard about this book. It is not talked about enough. It was first published in 2011 or thereabouts. And this particular copy I bought from work, and it starts off with an introduction by Grady Hendrix, and he explains the journey of this book and how he initially self-published it and nobody heard about it, and once I think he got a little bit more popular with a little known book called The Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, he was able to get this a little bit more distributed. And oh my God, why aren't people talking about this? Again, another little slip of a book. This book was so much fun. If you read Andy Weir's The Martian and enjoyed it, you will enjoy this book. It's a little less depth than The Martian because, of course, it's only 160 pages or so, but it has the same humor. It has kind of the same problem in it. You're following Walter, and he is a former astronaut who failed out of the shuttle program. And his cousin, who is currently an astronaut, is stuck on the space station. Something has happened and he's up there by himself. And of course, it's too expensive for the government to fund his rescue. And Walter just can't have that. So he puts together a ragtag group of people, and he's going to build a rocket because he has the know-how and go up and rescue his cousin. The problem is there's a reason, a very good reason, why Walter failed out of the shuttle program. And on top of that reason, he's an alcoholic and he can't keep away from the drink. So this follows Walter's journey in building a rocket to go save his cousin, and I enjoy the hell out of it. There's lots of humor in it. There's lots of heartfelt moments in it, and it's also action-packed. I read this one pretty quickly, and it had a surprisingly satisfying ending that had a lot of hope and heart in it, and I really love this book. I think more people should read it, more people should talk about it. God bless Grady Hendrix. I just love him. If you've not read Grady Hendrix and you decide to read this one first, I just want you to know that this is kind of an outlier. This is the only Grady Hendrix book that is not in the horror section. Okay, this is in the sci-fi section of your bookstore. If you don't like horror books, yes, read this, but this will be the only book that you'll read by him if you don't like horror. Anyways, just read it. It was so much fun. I loved it. And finally, the last book that I read in the month of August. I absolutely love this book so much, and it took me by surprise. I didn't think I was going to love it as much as I did. It just became available on my Libby app, and that is Iona Iverson's Rules for Commuting by Claire Pooley. This is my first book of Claire Pooley's, but it's not her only book. I love this book so much. And then get this, the main character of this book, Iona Iverson herself, is a 57-year-old strong woman. 2 books in 1 month with a 57-year-old protagonist. I was just so pleased with that. I just love seeing more and more books with the older generation being strong and relevant and capable people. And yes, more of it, please. Keep it coming. This book is just adorable. I use that word adorable, and it's really not my favorite word because it kind of implies cute with not a lot of depth, and I don't use it that way here. This book has plenty of depth. It was just adorable. You're following Iona. She is a columnist in London, and she commutes on the train, as many Londoners do. And Iona Iverson has her own rules for commuting, obviously, but there are all these unspoken rules about riding the train. You see the same faces every day, but you don't talk to anybody, you don't interact with anybody, you don't comment on what they're eating, what they're wearing, or anything. There's no interaction whatsoever. But everybody has like a nickname. There's the man spreader, there's too cute girl, or there's nerdy accountant, or whatever. People have like their nicknames for the people that they don't really know, but they judge them by how they look. And then one day something happens, and one of these people that Iona has a nickname for starts choking on his food. And it brings these other commuters together to help him, and they are kind of forced to interact and learn each other's name. They get to know each other, and they start to learn that they are not at all like the nicknames they've been given, and they start to become friends, and they achieve different connections with each other. It is just a delight. So you have all these wonderful characters. They're very beautifully written. They're very colorfully written. I felt connected to all of them in one way or another. I loved each and every one of these characters. and cared about them and wanted to know how they were going to get through their each individual struggles. And I just had such a great time with this book. If I was a star giver, this book would get all the stars. But I love this book. I highly recommend it. I will be reading her other books. I'm not sure how many there are. I know there is at least one other one because we carry it at work. I want to say it's the Authenticity Project. I could be making that up. And if you do end up reading it, I would love to know what you think about it. So that is it. Those are the books I read for the month of August. Finally. Thank you so much for your patience. Anyways, what did you guys read in August? My favorite book, obviously, was Iona Iverson's Rules for Commuting. But what was your favorite? Please let me know down in the comments, or you could just say hi down in the doodly-doo. If you're still watching at this point, I'd really appreciate if you gave that like button a boop, and a subscribe would be wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank you all so much for being here, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.